Mics are on.
Okay. Good evening and welcome to the MILLBRAE Planning Commission for November 20th, 2023. This meeting provides an opportunity for our community to engage in the planning programs, activities, reports for new development projects in the city of MILLBRAE. Members of the public are encouraged to provide comments. In-person speakers, if you wish to speak on an item, please fill out a speaker request form and turn it into the city staff. On this slip, please mention the item number. And then during that agenda item, we'll ask the participants to come up and speak. Attendees, if you are viewing from home via Zoom, please use the raise hand feature. And again, We're maximizing transparency, public access meeting here in the MILLBRAE chamber room, and it's also broadcast on Zoom. And now, given that, I'd like to call the meeting to order. And can we have a roll call, please?
Commissioner Choi? Present. Commissioner Chan?
Present.
Commissioner Davis? Here. Vice Chair Quigg?
Yes.
Chair Wong?
Present.
Thank you. All members of the Planning Commission are present.
Okay, and then I'd like to welcome new Planning Commissioner Samuel Choi. First meeting here. Happy that you can join us today.
Thank you.
And can you introduce yourself?
Of course. Thank you for the warm welcome. My name is Samuel Choi. I am a project manager working for the City and County of San Francisco. I've lived in the Bay Area since the year 1998, have moved around, and found myself living now in MILLBRAE since 2020. Thank you.
Welcome. And let's move on to our Pledge of Allegiance. If you're able to, please rise. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Before we get into the numbered agenda items, there is a request from the city that they would like us to like me to read this land acknowledgement. It's for the peoples that previously occupied this land here. The MILLBRAE Planning Commission acknowledges that we occupy the unceded, ancestral, traditional, and contemporary homeland of the Ramaytush Ohlone peoples, who are the original inhabitants of the San Francisco Peninsula. We wish to pay our respects to the ancestors and relatives of the Ramaytush community, and to affirm their sovereign rights as First Peoples. We recognize that the Ramaytush Ohlone have lived in harmony with nature for millennia, and that to achieve a truly ecologically sustainable future for MILLBRAE, we must embrace indigenous traditional ecological knowledge in how we care for the city's lands, waters, and all its people. We will continue to uplift and foster a meaningful relationship with the Ramaytush Ohlone community, and we encourage all to visit www.ramaytush.org, Ramaytush.org, to learn more about the Ramaytush Ohlone people. Okay, thank you. And moving on to now agenda item number 1, agenda review. If there are any changes, issues, questions, comments to tonight's agenda? Okay, given none, we'll move on to item number 2, approval of minutes for the regular meeting minutes of October 16th, 2023. And I believe only a few of the planning commissioners were here. Do you have any comments on those meeting minutes?
Move to approve.
Okay, we have a move to approve in a second. I would like to actually make one comment. I know that in the past there's been various planning commissions that have asked for various levels of detail in the meeting minutes. For these meeting minutes, I would suggest that there's a lack of details in the meeting minutes. For example, it lists the speakers who came up and spoke about the project, and I think it would be good to have on record the issues that, or just some statement issue that they were concerned about, or their concern. Very simple statement or phrase, or just what topics they asked about. And then also for the Planning Commission discussion, it would be good just to also list the topics that were discussed, so we have a record. I know that we have these meeting minutes, or these meetings memorialized on YouTube, but for people that don't have YouTube, don't want to sit through 2 hours of YouTube videos, it'd be good just to have a simple details on the record for that. If we can do that.
We can add those comments in the minutes. If the commission wants to approve of the minutes with those additional comments, we could review the tape and include them. Or if you want, we could also bring it back at the next meeting.
Yeah, I would request to have it brought back to the next meeting.
Sure.
Okay. And we can do that. Okay, then we can move on if there's no other objection. Okay. Okay, then let's move on to agenda item number 3, public comments, public communications. This time is reserved for persons wishing to comment on any item not on tonight's agenda. Public communication is limited to no more than 3 minutes per speaker. If there's anybody in the room who wishes to speak on any topic not listed on tonight's agenda, do we have any speaker slips?
There are no speaker slips and no hands raised.
Okay, no hands raised online?
No.
Okay. Then we're going to close the public communications. And we'll move on to number 4, item number 4, public hearing. Okay. Item number 4, public hearing has 2 items tonight. First item being 743 Barcelona Drive, design review, followed by 45 Corte del Sol design review. Before we start into the 743 Barcelona Drive item, I'd like to ask the commissioners if there's any disclosures, conflict of interest, or ex parte communications.
We found out today that I am within the 500 feet and I have to recluse myself.
Okay,
I visited the project site today to look at the story poles that staff installed, and I was approached by one of the neighbors, and we talked a little bit about the project.
and Maureen?
And I've had some business dealings with the family, so I'm recusing myself as well.
Recusing. So we have 2 commissioners recusing. And for Commissioner Quigg and Commissioner Davis, I assume you're going to wait in the back room and will be called when we resume the next item? Okay, thank you. Okay, so now we're moving on forward to 743 Barcelona Drive. This is a public hearing on a design review permit application to allow the demolition of an existing 1-story residence and the construction of a new 2-story residence in the single-family residential R1 zoning district. City of Millbrae staff, Jennifer, if you have a presentation, actually for the board, I guess we can see that right on the screen. And for you at home and in the audience, you can see the presentation on the screen there.
Good evening, Chair Wong and members of the Planning Commission. I'm Jennifer Lim, Assistant Planner with the City of MILLBRAE. Tonight's project is at 743 Barcelona Drive. This is a public hearing on a design review permit application to allow the demolition of an existing 1-story residence and the construction of a new 2-story residence in the single-family R1 zoning district. So this map shows the project's location, and this project is located in the Cappuccino neighborhood as represented by the red dot on the map. This project is located in the R1 zone, single-family residential. It's an 8,400 square foot interior lot. There is an existing residence, 1-story, about 1,596 square feet. And the project proposal is for the construction of a new, approximately 4,525 square foot, 2-story single-family residence. So this is the existing site plan. The existing one-story residence is to be demolished. And just a note, there is a 10-foot easement measured from the rear property line. The proposed site plan meets all of the development standards, including the first and second story setbacks. It also meets the front yard landscaping requirement and rear yard open space requirements. The proposed first floor plan includes 1 bedroom, 2 bathrooms, a powder room, an office, a living room, dining room, family room, kitchen, laundry room, and an attached 2-car garage. The proposed second floor plan has a primary bedroom, primary bathroom, 3 bedrooms, 3 bathrooms, and a family room. So this is a 2-story ranch-style design featuring horizontal siding on both the first and second stories. There is a brick veneer feature that wraps around all sides of the building, and the roof is a charcoal color composition shingle roofing. The entry door and garage door are both wood, and the windows will feature a white trim. Here's the proposed rear elevation, and you could see that veneer feature along the back as well. Here's the proposed left elevation. The dashed blue lines represent the outlines of the adjacent neighbors' windows at 739 Barcelona. The proposed windows are offset from the neighbors' windows. The 2 proposed windows at the front of the second story on the right side elevation will be frosted to mitigate privacy impacts for the adjacent neighbor at 747 Barcelona. And these 2 frosted windows are at the primary closet and primary bathroom. So this is the color and material board. In addition to what was shown on the front elevation, this slide shows the walkway pavers and driveway pavers as well. So there were a total of 6 adjacent owner consultation forms that were returned. 5 of the forms returned were in support of the project, and 1 form was returned in opposition of the project. The adjacent resident at 747 Barcelona Drive noted their concerns regarding view impacts to their living room and primary bedroom being blocked. The adjacent resident requested that the front of the second story be set back 2 feet in order to reduce some of the view impacts at their living room, since all of the views from their rear will be blocked. So this photo is a photo from 747 Barcelona's living room, and the story poles were installed showing where the front of the second story would start. And this is another photo showing the view from the living room. The applicant provided a rendered view of the proposed second story looking from the neighbor's living room window, as you could see on the slide here. This is the view from 747 Barcelona's rear deck, with the story poles also installed. So for evaluation, in general, the applicant provided an analysis and found that the current proposal to be the most viable option given the layout of the site and the amount of excavation to the rear that would be involved with the alternate designs. By shifting the second story back further to the rear of the property would preserve some of the views from the living room window. And the applicant did not elect to pursue the additional 2 feet setback, claiming that there are structural modifications to the design and that the building would add to the cost. While staff is able to make the design review findings and recommend approval, staff believes that setting the upper floor back 2 feet is a reasonable adjustment given the significant loss of view to the upslope neighbor from the back deck and the rear of the house. The adjustment will help preserve more of the neighbor's view from the living room while still allowing the applicant to achieve their goal of creating a 5-bedroom, 6-bath home. In order to approve the design review permit, the Planning Commission must make the following findings. Number 1, the architectural, landscaping, and general appearance of the proposed building or structure and grounds are in keeping with the character of the neighborhood. 2, the project complies with all applicable development regulations. 3, the project will not cause significant visual impact to the neighboring views from principal rooms of the resident unless it is proven by the applicant that there are no other viable or cost-effective alternatives. And 4, the proposal is not detrimental to the orderly, harmonious, and safe development of the city and will not impair the desirability of investment or occupation in the neighborhood in which the building or structure is proposed to be erected. The staff recommends that the Planning Commission receive the presentation, review the report, review the project, consider the public testimony, and approve the design review permit subject to the findings and resolution in Attachment 1 and subject to the conditions of approval to allow the demolition of an existing 1-story residence and the construction of a new 2-story residence in the single-family R1 zoning district. Staff is available for any questions, and I believe the applicant is joined by Zoom and the homeowner is here in person.
Okay, at this time, I'd like to ask Samuel, Nathan, do you have any questions for staff? Okay, I have a couple questions. Jennifer, maybe you might want to stay there. So the size of this house, it's a very significant size upgrade. Just checking on the compatibility with the neighboring houses. How does this house size compare with the other houses in the neighborhood in terms of square footage?
The other homes in the neighborhood are pretty comparable. This project does meet all of the lot coverage and FAR requirements.
So if this house has a 4,525 square foot planned area, have you researched what the largest size house in the area is?
I don't have that information offhand, but there are a mixture of 1-story and 2-story residents around the surrounding neighborhood.
Okay. Roscoe, any comment on that?
No other comment.
Okay. And then also, I know there's a grade on this hillside. I think the rendering doesn't really show it very well and doesn't show the other neighboring adjacent homes. But can you comment on this, the height of the home in relation to the neighboring houses on the left and the right side?
Yeah, the neighboring house on the left side is a 2-story home, and the neighbor on the right side at 747 Barcelona, their 1-story would look just about at the same level as the proposed 2nd story, as it is on the upslope side.
So the one up the hill is 1-story, and it'll be about the same height. Okay, thank you. Okay, that's the questions I had. Thank you. And usually at times we talk about the neighborhood slips also. So can you talk about the neighborhood slips and how many were received and how many neighbors were for or voted against it?
So we did, 6 adjacent neighbors were notified. We did receive 5 slips back in support of the project, and 1 was in opposition, and that was from the upslope neighbor at 747 Barcelona.
Okay, thank you, Jennifer.
I do have one question, if that's okay. So the proposed project, the proposed second story, is the applicant asking for, or the front face of the proposed second story, does it align, how does it align with the front faces of the adjacent buildings?
So it would, the second story is set back 10 feet from the first floor. It would be in line with the windows at the adjacent neighbor's window at 747, so that's from their living room, as you saw in the pictures.
Okay.
And then it does in line with the 739 Barcelona.
thank you.
Okay, if there are no other questions, thank you, Jennifer. So we have a routine process. We have the staff report, questions for the staff, and then for each item, we'd like to ask the property owner or the applicant to give their presentation, followed by any public comments. And then after that, then we use the same process so that we have everyone has a chance to speak. But make sure that you fill out a speaker slip if you wish to speak on this item. So for now, we'd like to call the property owner and the applicant to come up if they'd wish to speak or make a statement about their project, along with the owner's architect.
Hello, sorry, there's specific instructions here. Hi, my name is Jacqueline Kong, and I am the property owner of 743 Barcelona Drive. We bought the house, me and my husband bought the house intentionally to live close to our families. I have a brother that lives in San Mateo, yep, San Mateo, and they just had a newborn. Welcome to the family, and it's very convenient for us to keep going back and forth to his place, helping out him and his wife with the baby. Along with that, my sister lives in South San Francisco, so MILLBRAE is in between both of those, and extremely important for me and my husband to stay close to our side of the family to assist where needed. We also have grandparents that live close by in Burlingame. We have family in MILLBRAE as well. And so buying a house in MILLBRAE was always something that we wanted to do and very intentional. And so previous to buying this house, we were looking at houses in San Bruno, MILLBRAE, Burlingame, San Mateo. We put in 2 offers, one in MILLBRAE specifically, and we lost that one. And so for us to have this house and make it the house that all our families could gather to for holidays is very important to us. We are big on family gatherings. Me and my mom right now are planning Thanksgiving for this Friday, and we're gonna have a whole bunch of people there. And so to take the burden off my parents as that host family is really important to me and my husband, to make sure that his family from the East Bay have a place to stay when they come over, and also my family can if they just need to throw the kids over at our house. Hence why we are making it as big as we are in the plans.
Welcome to MILLBRAE.
Thank you. We've been here, well, I've been here my whole life.
Oh, okay. And do you have you mentioned the architect is online?
Yes, my architect is online. Sneha, do you have anything to add?
No, I think you've covered it. I think the design developed from an intentional, set of needs. As many homeowners, I think, approach the design process. We did try to reduce the burden, like financial burden of construction on this particular lot. It is steeply graded. The house has been pulled forward to reduce the amount of excavation needed to push it back on the lot. And then there was special attention work through the civil engineer for the cuts and fills and all the grading on the site. The use of sort of low-pitched roofs was another thing that we tried to incorporate into the design to reduce the, I guess, visual hindrance for neighbors. I think it's also very important to Jackie and her husband to have a house that fit into the neighborhood, both architecturally and aesthetically. So that was also a big consideration during the design process.
Samuel, Nathan, any questions for the applicant?
Yeah, so as mentioned in the staff report, it was alluded to the fact that you did an analysis of the request to do a 2-foot setback, and that structurally that wouldn't work anymore. Could you go into a little bit more detail about what that means?
Yeah, and Sneha, feel free to chime in where needed, but if we were to push the second story back, that would essentially mean we'd have to excavate more ground from behind, which would be a financial burden on the entire project already. But on top of that, we're trying to keep the slab of the garage intact because that is quite expensive to redo as well in the slope grading that we currently have on the land.
Okay, in terms of the garage slab, maybe that answers my second question. So, like, why not, like, in order to achieve the 2-foot setback, either take 2 feet off the rooms in the front or sort of equally take little slices out of every room in the second story in order to do that?
Yeah, we took a look at that when we were doing the plans and the feedback did come in. The general contractor as well as structural said that we would have to implement more foundation into the plan than the current ideas of it. And so that essentially would be another financial burden.
Okay, thank you.
Samuel? That was my question. Okay. Okay, so I have a question for the applicant architect. Can you talk about the heights of the ceilings for second floor and the crawl space and the overall height of the house so that we can understand the height limitations or requirements for your home?
Yes, so, oh, sorry, was there someone talking?
Go ahead.
Oh, no, okay. Yeah, so we are assuming a crawl space underneath the house. This will likely be in the realm of, 24 to 30 inches. The floor-to-floor ceiling heights in the ground floor and the second floor are both 9 feet each. That brings our building height from the existing finished floor. The top of the ridge is 24.9 inches above that. So we are underneath the allowed building height restrictions for the City of Millbrae's Planning Commission. And so again, that was achieved by low-pitch roofs and, nothing extravagant in terms of interior finished floor to ceiling heights.
And have you considered any other roof pitches to lower that height or the roof pitch?
Yeah, we explored shallow ones. It was sort of a discussion between the GC and obviously the roofing sub, quite frankly, to having a roof that performs adequately with roof shingles, maintaining, a minimum pitch. I believe, and this may have slipped my mind, but I believe the roof pitch, if I'm correct, is 5 and 12. So we looked at, pitches as low as 3.5 to 12, but aesthetically we felt it detracted from the overall look and feel of the house from the outside.
How does the second story roof pitch compare to the first story?
The first story is 5 to 12, and the second story is 4 to 12.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Any other questions?
Sorry if I missed this, but what is the roof pitch of the existing home?
It is 4 to 12.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, I think, thank you for that presentation and answering our questions. Okay. Okay, we'll move on to more comments from the public. We'll go with the in-person speaker slips first. So thank you for filling out the speaker slips for speaking. The first person we have here today is Rosemary Ma, 747 Barcelona Drive. Welcome to the podium.
Chairman Wong, I don't give speech that much, so I'm kind of nervous. I just want to. I just want to follow up that you asked questions that what kind of view you can see from my windows. And two things I want to mention. One thing is every morning I get up around 5 to 6, I can see the sunrise. And it's really peaceful for me when I be able to see it. But knowing a year from now, this is all gone. So I'm just asked the owner for this house, my next door neighbors, which is not going to be friends after this, is that sit back 2 feet, at least I can have a little bit more view forever. You know, once the house is built, I'll lost it forever. Right now, even when I go to my patio to see the sunrise, I won't be able to see it because the house is extended so far back. So I'm just hopefully, and also second thing is when I look from my window, the house next to 747, my neighbor, and the house next to it, which is like the parents' house. And I can see that house is set back a little bit more than the current house, the planning, my neighbor's house, the future house. So I'm asking very little, just sit back for 2 feet and forever. And since I'm retired, if I go to work, it doesn't matter. I close my blind, I go to work, I don't see it. And all this time I worked for so long, now I'm retired. And I start to enjoy my home, and it will be gone in a year. So I said really, really sad, but that has to be done. So thanks very much for considering my comment.
Okay, thank you, Rosemary. Do we have any other speaker slips?
No, there are no more slips and no hands raised.
Okay. Okay, I think we've heard from the applicant and from the public. I'd like to ask the commissioners, do we have a motion to close public comments?
Move to close public comment.
Second?
Okay, and vote?
Commissioner Choi?
If I could get clarification, what is the vote?
To close public
Oh,
comment.
yes.
No
Yes,
worries.
aye.
Commissioner Chan?
Yes.
Chair Wong?
Yes.
Thank you. Public comment is now closed.
Okay, we'll move on to commissioner comments. If one of you would like to start.
I guess I can go first. You know, I think what the applicant is proposing is within the code set by the city. And it, you know, the concern was raised by a neighbor. It seems like they made a good faith effort to investigate it based on what I heard, to investigate addressing their concerns. Based on what I heard, it doesn't seem feasible. So I'm not, I don't think we should necessarily ask the applicant to set back an additional 2 feet, and we can improve the plan as is.
Samuel, do you have comments on the project?
Yeah, so I'm still not clear on why setting back by 2 feet is a structural constraint. You mentioned that there's the applicant or the owner mentioned there's a higher demand on slab. I would understand that if the project was to preserve the first story, but it looks in this case that the first story would be demolished as well. and a second story is added. So it's a complete demolition of a one-story home and the construction of a two-story building. With that, I am in favor of adding the condition of setting back the second story by 2 feet as staff has recommended.
Okay, so thank you, Nathan. Thank you, Samuel. I have a few comments on the project and hoping the architect could stand by also. The rendering for this project, if you can pull that up, Roscoe or Jennifer. We should have had more questions for the architect, but there's some features of this rendering that I see that have questions about. First of all, when I visited the site, the height of the home, the elevation of the grade seemed very high. The driveway was really steep. And it doesn't really appear to show up on this rendering. So it would be good to have that. Usually, I appreciate the architect's drawings where it shows the relation of the side to the other home's windows. So that's good. So it talks about, addresses the privacy issues so that windows aren't looking right into each other's house. So I appreciate that consideration. But for some more of these drawings, I would like to see the relation of the house and the heights in relation to the neighboring houses. One of the key features I think we look at when we look at the design of the house, or when I look at the design of the house, I'm looking at the contour to the land form. And so that, if we're on a hillside, I'd like to see a roof lines that kind of are smooth so that the home uphill and the home downhill, there would be like a grade for the roof line. I know that if the uphill home is a single family residence, they could go up higher, so it may or may not apply in that case. I would like to see it recognized on the relationship of how this house sticks up in relation to the other homes. And then the same thing with contour of the land, we're looking at the sight line. Also, as Rosemary mentioned, the front of the homes so that they're kind of in a line, one's not sticking way out in front of the other ones. Given that Rosemary recommended or requested to set back only 2 feet, that doesn't mean it's sticking out enormously. But I do see that from an architectural perspective, the rendering of this house, if we go to the front again, there is some oddity with the roof in the garage where the edge of the garage on the left side, it kind of goes under the front door entrance. And so that I see as potentially a design flaw. I'm not sure how the architect views it, but that height of that roof line might come up about, if the door frame is 7.5 feet or so, and that might be around 5 feet. So someone's going to be potentially hitting their head against that, and or water rolling off of that roof line. If the drainage isn't properly or someone doesn't clean their gutter, it's going to be spilling over into their door frame there. I would like to see a lot more design details on these. I really welcome neighborhood upgrades and people updating their home. And if they update their home, that could really elevate the neighborhood and be a welcome addition, make it look brighter, cleaner, more modern, updated. But I would like to see more attention to design elements. And some of these design elements could include that, the roof line there, the front porch might be enclosed because it looks like it's peering right into the side of the house. The second story of the house, it looks pretty bulky and massive. It's very plain. So more architectural details if you're adding shutters or like a faux balcony or something of interest might be good. I noticed that you're adding the stone veneer on the bottom portion of the front, and then that wraps around to the side of the house. So it's potentially, if you can, trade off the value. We don't really may not see a need for a veneer on the side of the house where no one can see it, but you might use some of those monies for those details and stick it to the front of the house. The more complete renderings, some of the planting plans here, it shows a bush in front of, underneath the front window, but I think it's mentioned sage, so that'll be a lot nicer than just a hedge. So more details showing the actual rendering of the type of plants to be used would be nice. Planting plan, if you're looking at like drought tolerant plants in yards, it looks like there's a lot of grass here. But really, unless you're really planning to upkeep the house, things like grass are really hard to keep up and takes a lot of water. And, in this day and age, we're looking at water conservation, wood siding. That's also a big maintenance issue, although if it's hardy board, may require less so because it's fiberboard cement. But typically, if you have wood siding, you're going to have to paint it every 3 or 4 years, and then you're going to have to clean it off every year. So it's going to take a lot of maintenance just for that and for the yard. And so having more of these architectural details would be nice. I'd really like to see that. Making use of the driveway. This is an enormous house. We're getting 4,500 square foot. In our days, the state and the politicians and the housing crisis, they're pushing to have more and more housing for people. And so we're starting to see a lot more of these bigger, larger developments, and the state's really pushing us to accept them. But with that, nobody mentioned it. Don't see tons of neighbors here. But with that larger house, there's going to be parking issues, especially if every bedroom is almost like a master bedroom. Almost every room has its own bathroom. So given that, it's likely to be like adult-sized rooms who are likely to be drivers and have cars. And so if we have more cars, then we have a 2-car garage here. But the oddity for the driveway here is that it narrows down to the front, maybe to make space or be consistent with the driveway, but then that may limit the number of cars you can park in your driveway. So I'd like to see a little bit enlarged driveway, so to make sure you can fit 2 cars in the driveway. It looks like there's some type of retaining wall on the left side next to the steps. So if you're squeezing 2 cars in and you open the door, that's going to potentially hit the side of that wall there. So you may want a little bit more space for that driveway and at least extend it out so that the right side is expanded out a little bit. Otherwise, you'll be parking on your grass. And then also, this day and age, I'm kind of getting along here, but this day and age, if we are having, a lot of people in the house, could include older people. And so access from the driveway to the front door, you might consider steps from the driveway. I think the driveway at the top of the garage is going to be almost level with the front door and the porch. So it'd be easy to make a walkway from your driveway to that front door and make it a lot more accessible. And, there's a lot of steps here, a lot of stairs. If, you might think about ADA considerations, but in lieu of that, if you have a walkway from the driveway over to the front porch, would be good. So there's a lot of things, a lot of details that I'd really recommend to work out. Your lighting plan, the roof line, the driveway, the planting plan, access to the house. And this is just for the front of the house. So I'm tending to want to see another full detailed revision. And, this can only benefit your project, to add these details and to have more elements to make it look nicer, to elevate the neighborhood, to pay attention to these details. Maybe planting plan, even like a tree possibly, or something low maintenance that would help. So that's my thinking toward this project here. Okay. Given that, I think, Nathan, did you make a motion to move it forward? Or do you want to send it back?
Okay. Commissioner Wong, I appreciate how much of a fine-tooth comb you went over with the plans. You always have so many, a lot to say on a lot of them. I personally don't feel I need that level of detail in order to move forward. Commissioner Choi is more, has more of a background in planning than I do. So if he thinks it's the 2-foot setback condition is reasonable, and that's what he would like to see in order to approve. I suppose I'd be like, I'm kind of indifferent. I don't have the ability to evaluate. I just thought, if the applicant says it's really not feasible, then I'll take them at their word. But I guess I'll move then, based on the comments that I've heard, to approve the, to approve the design review permit for the demolition of an existing 1-story residence and construction of a new 2-story residence at 743 Barcelona Drive, with the condition attached to staff, how would you recommend I word this?
If the commission is, if the commission would like to incorporate that, it's not incorporated in the draft conditions currently, but if the commission decides in the motion, you just read that the applicant, as a condition of approval, will be required to set back the front of the 2nd story an additional 2 feet from proposed.
Okay, then with the addition of a condition to set back the upper story an additional 2 feet.
Right, from the front.
Right, from the front, yes.
Is it too late to make a comment?
No.
No. Okay, so I wholeheartedly agree with everything that Chair Wong had said. I just didn't feel that was part of what we're asked to adjudicate based on the question asked. So I would encourage the applicant and the architect to really listen to what Chair Wong has said and really think, if this is your one chance of building your family home for years and years, for generations, please look at this carefully. I think the roof line could use better articulation. And then I heard from the neighbor, and sorry, I forgot your name, about your concern about seeing the sunrise and the sunset. I think if there were some sensibility to that, or a particular viewing, I think I would be in support of a project that has taken that into concern as well.
Okay, so Roscoe, if you can clarify, we either take a vote or send it back, right? Yeah. Or we have to take a vote to approve or deny, right?
Yeah, so the current motion on the table is to approve the project with the condition that the upper story, the front of the upper story, be set back an additional 2 feet. And what I'm hearing is that the commission is open or is not going to mandate or require additional changes to the plans, and that they should explore that. And kind of work with staff on that. If that's something that the commission is directing, then we can work with the applicant on that and not require specific details.
Okay. Yeah, we need a second.
Second.
Okay. Again, I think I feel that I would like to see it come back again and see these revisions made before us. But can we have a vote call, please?
Commissioner Choi?
Aye.
Commissioner Chan?
Yes.
And Chair Wong?
No.
Motion passes 2-1.
Is that a pass? Or no?
Yeah, the motion passes.
Okay.
Approve the project with the condition that the upper story, front of the upper story setback additional 2 feet, and the applicant work with staff on the comments discussed.
Okay. And with all projects, we have a 10-day right of appeal, if someone wishes to appeal. Okay, thank you, everybody. Okay, so we will move on to our second project review, 45 Corte del Sol, public hearing on a design review permit application to allow the demolition of an existing one-story residence and construction of a new two-story residence in the single-family residential zoning district. Oh, and recalling back Maureen, Commissioners Quigg and Davis.
I think we're just waiting for Chair.
Okay, looks like we're good to go. So I mentioned 45 Corte del Sol design review permit. As with the last project, commissioners, question for commissioners? Are there any perceived conflict of interest or disclosures for ex parte communications with the applicant or neighbors, any parties, interested parties? No? Samuel, good? Okay, for me, I did visit the site and, right. Oh, but I did. I spoke with Mr. Valdez, neighbor. He happened to be outside working on his yard, and so we just talked about the project with him. And that's it for disclosures. Take it away, Nestor.
All right. Good evening, Planning Commissioners and Chair Wong. My name is Nestor Guevara, Associate Planner here with the City of Millbrae, and I'll be going over the project tonight. The project address, as Chair Wong said, is at 45 Corte del Sol, and the subject, it's a public hearing to consider a design review permit for the demolition of an existing single-story house and the construction of a two-story home in the R1 zone. This here is the project location. The red dot shows the project site, which is in the Highlands neighborhood. A bit of background on the project. The project site is in the R1 zone, the single-family residential zone. It's an interior lot. It's just under 9,000 square feet, and it currently contains a 2,200 square foot single-story home. And the proposal is to demolish that home and to build a new two-story home. This is the existing site plan. So the proposal is to demolish this existing structure as well as the pool in the rear. This here is the proposed site plan. Again, it's a two-story home. It meets all the setbacks, both for the first and the second story, as well as the rear rear open space requirement and the front yard landscaping requirement. This is the proposed first floor plan. It includes 1 bedroom, 1 bathroom, 1 powder room, and then a kitchen, dining room, laundry room, a mudroom, and then an attached two-car garage. This is the proposed second floor plan. It includes 4 bedrooms and 4 bedrooms and 4 bathrooms, or sorry, 3 bathrooms. And again, it meets all of the second-story setbacks. Now we'll go through the elevations. This is the front elevation. It includes, the first story includes a mixture of stucco and then stone, as well as wood used for the garage door. And then the second story includes vertical siding, and the roofing is asphalt shingles. The next 2 slides are the rear elevation. And then the left side elevation, which you'll notice does not have any windows on that second story. And then finally, the right side elevation. And then this slide, the next 2 slides show the rendering, the 3D rendering of the proposed project that just gives a better visual to kind of see the different materials that are being proposed. That was the front, and then this is the rear 3D rendering there. In terms of neighbor response, a total of 6 adjacent owner consultation forms were sent out by the project applicant. Of those, 3 were returned in support of the project, and 3 were returned in opposition to the project. The adjacent owner consultation form from 30 Corte del Sol noted privacy concerns into their front courtyard, while the adjacent owner consultation form from 35 Corte del Sol noted concerns regarding privacy, solar access, as well as the size of the project. The residents at 55 Corte del Sol also returned a adjacent owner consultation form in opposition to the project, and they noted noted concerns regarding the scale of the proposal. This is just a context site or a context neighborhood context map that shows in the highlight is the project site, and then either side of that on the adjacent side neighbors are 35 and 55 Corte del Sol, and across the street is 30 Corte del Sol. In terms of analyzing the neighborhood concerns, staff notes that the distance between 30 Corte del Sol and 45 Corte del Sol's front property lines is approximately 60 feet. The proposed first story for the project is set back a further 20 feet from that front property line, and then the upper story starts 10 feet behind that 20-foot setback from the first story wall below. In order to address the privacy concerns that were mentioned by the property owner at 35 Corte del Sol, the project applicant made some plan revisions, and these included eliminating a second-story deck from the project, slightly offsetting the second story so it faces Vista Grande in kind of the rear of the project site rather than towards 35 Corte del Sol, reducing the extent of their proposed first story or ground level deck in the rear, as well as adding a fence, a 6-foot fence, as well as a planter containing hedges that would provide screening on that side property line that abuts 35 Corte del Sol. And they also designed the home to not include any second-story windows on that second-story side that faces 35 Corte del Sol. This slide just kind of shows some of the reductions in the wood deck in the rear, and then the 6-foot fence as well as the hedging to provide some screening and privacy. The neighbor at 35 Corte del Sol also expressed concerns regarding solar access and shading. The applicant included a solar access plan as part of, or a solar access study as part of their plan set. The study does show partial shade towards 35 Corte del Sol, especially in the late afternoon on January 1st. But per that study, neither the pool and the rear of 35 Corte del Sol nor the solar panels would be affected. The neighbors at 35 and 55 Corte del Sol both expressed concerns regarding the size and the scale of the project. Staff notes that the proposed project would meet all development standards, which include a maximum height of 30 feet, and this proposal is for a maximum building height of 27 feet and 1 inch. Staff did receive additional correspondence in opposition to the project from the property owners at 20 and 30 Corte Alegre. And they noted the following concerns, that the proposed project would be in violation of the California Solar Shade Control Act, that the proposed building height would be over the maximum allowed, the lot coverage and FAR being over the maximum allowed, a lack of community engagement, as well as concerns with loss of view, loss of sunlight, and loss of privacy, and concerns with project's proximity to utility lines. In analyzing those concerns, the California Solar Shade Act is intended to prohibit blocking of solar access by trees to adjacent properties, and this proposed project does not include any trees that would create shade into the neighboring properties. In terms of the building height, as stated earlier, the proposed building height is 27 feet 1 inch, which is under that maximum 30-foot allowable in the R1 zone. And the project also meets both the FAR and the lot coverage, which lot coverage maximum is 50% and FAR maximum is 55%. This project meets both development standards. In terms of community engagement, as mentioned and detailed earlier, there's neighbor consultation forms that were sent out to all the adjacent neighbors by the applicant. The project was noticed in the San Mateo Daily Journal. Notices were mailed to property owners within 300-foot radius of the project site, as well as public notices that were installed at the project site and in the neighborhood. In terms of the utility lines, the project applicant would be in communication with PG&E during the construction process. And in terms of the concerns regarding loss of sunlight, as mentioned earlier, the solar access study shows some minimal shading effects occurring throughout the year. In terms of the loss of privacy, as detailed earlier, the applicant did revise their plan to address some privacy concerns from their neighbors. And the following slides will kind of delve a little bit more into the loss of view impacts. So staff performed a site visit to both 20 and 30 Corte Alegre and took pictures of the of the views from both sites, and I'll just go through them here. This is from 20 Corte Alegre. This is from the kitchen. You'll notice the orange there with the wood. That's the story poles that were installed by the project applicant to show the proposed building. That's from the deck outside. And that is from the dining room by the kitchen as well. In analyzing these view concerns, staff notes that there are existing view obstructions, which is the utility pole as well as the wires that accompany it. The applicant also prepared an alternative analysis narrative that explored other options that they looked into. There's an option of undergrounding the first story as basically a basement with the upper story being above ground, but they found that this would be financially burdensome, which would make the project unfeasible. A first-story addition option was also explored, but this would eliminate the backyard for 45 Corte del Sol. Well, it would also affect the only view that the rear neighbor at 1080 Vista Grande has. And now we'll go over the photos from 30 Corte Alegre. This is from the deck at 30 Corte Alegre. You'll see on the right the story pole plan, or the story poles.
Esther, we seem to be missing the pole on that one.
It's towards the right by the building itself. Yeah. I think you can see it a little bit clearer in the other pictures. This image here is from the dining room at 30 Corte Alegre. And this one is also from the dining room as well, from 30 Corte Alegre. And analyzing the views from 30 Corte Alegre, staff notes that they do have views of the bay, East Bay Hills, and the San Bruno Mountains from both their upper story deck and the dining room. but the view impacts from 30 Corte Alegre appear to be minimal due to the views that are still available of the Bay and East Bay Hills from both the dining room and the deck as well. With that said, the following are the findings that are required under MILLBRAE Municipal Code in order for the Planning Commission to approve the requested design review permit. Number one, the architectural, landscaping, and general appearance of the proposed building or structure and grounds are in keeping with the character of the neighborhood. Number two, that the project complies with all applicable development regulations. Number three, that the project will not cause a significant visual impact to the neighboring views from principal rooms of a residence, unless it is proven otherwise, or unless it is proven by the applicant that there is no other viable or cost-effective alternative. And number four, that the proposal is not detrimental to the orderly, harmonious, and safe development of the city and will not impair the desirability of investment or occupation in the neighborhood in which the building or structure is proposed to be erected. Staff recommends then that the Planning Commission review the project, consider the public testimony and findings as presented, and consider adopting the attached resolution approving the design review permit application to permit the demolition of the existing single-story home and the construction of a new two-story home at the R1 residence, or in the R1 zoning district. With that said, that concludes the presentation. Staff is available for any questions, and the project applicant, homeowners, and I believe the architect are here as well.
Great, thank you, Nestor. So I'll open it up for our commissioners if you have any questions for staff.
Thanks for the presentation, Nestor. Something that I just thought of with respect to the option to turn the project into just one story and basically taking up the whole backyard, would that run up against the lot coverage requirements that we have?
It might as well.
It might?
It might, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then in terms of the views that are being impacted, they do look quite panoramic. So it seems like any second-story addition anywhere below those houses would have drawn some attention. Can you think of any second-story additions that have happened in this neighborhood, and what may have happened at those times?
Off the top of my head, I can't really think of
Okay.
anything.
Anyone else? Okay, so going back to me. Sure.
You did a lot of work on this. You presented a very good presentation. Thank you.
So, Nestor, can you repeat the speaker slips? How many approved?
Sure. So none of the speaker slips about the adjacent owner consultation forms. 6 were sent out by the applicant, 3 were returned in support of the project, and 3 were returned in opposition to the project.
Okay, and those issues that you presented in the resolution that you investigated, those addressed what you perceived as the concerns that people had?
Yes, and we did note as well the additional correspondence received from both 20 and 30 Corte Alegre that wasn't included in the adjacent owner consultation forms because they're not directly adjacent to the project site, but of course they're analyzed as well.
Okay. I know for the public we'll have opportunity to comment, but I just want to clarify what the staff was investigating. And also, so in general, when you reviewed the concerns that the neighbors had, was there one main issue, or was it kind of a gamut of different issues, or was it?
I mean, different neighbors had different concerns. Some of them are, privacy, view impacts, I'd say were probably the main ones. And as presented, the project architect, and maybe they can speak on this a little bit more, but they did revise their plans in a couple of different ways to try to address the, especially the privacy impacts.
Did you talk with the applicant about the heights of the building, possibly reducing the heights or changing the pitch of the roof?
I believe they looked into it, and they found that it would still have the view wouldn't change enough. that it would really be a benefit. But again, they can probably speak to that a little bit better than I can.
Right, I know that the applicant may, and their architect may present their findings, but I just want to hear different opinions
Sure.
too. And then as far as the size of the house, here another large expansion, new 4,217 square foot home. Again, the same question from the last one is how do the other homes compare in size to this home? Are there other homes this large? Or?
I think there's an exhibit that was prepared by the applicants and your projects and your plan set, attachment number 2. And I'll let you know which sheet it is. It is sheet A2.2. Shows kind of a comparison of the neighborhood and the different sizes of the homes.
I did see that in that drawing, A2.2, they did call out a few of the homes.
Yeah, and
different
this one is
sizes.
on the larger side of the
When I looked at
size for the neighborhood,
I actually did do a little bit more research on this. I did look at some of the public records, and when I looked at the size, square footage of the homes, for these homes, they had a different square footage. Like, they were actually less, like, for example, 1071 Vista Grande. Here, the applicant's drawing lists 3730 square feet, but then on public records, it came out to 2610.
And it came out to what, I'm sorry?
2610 square feet. I don't know if it's a question for you or legal counsel, or if anyone has that question, but how can that be different?
Through the chair, I think the commission should be careful about using the square footage, whether it's on public record or provided by the applicant. It's really difficult to determine the actual square footage of homes. One reason is that when we're trying to compare this house to the other homes, the zoning code calculates floor area differently than a normal, than the assessor would if they were to assess the house. So we count floor area, additional floor area if you have a ceiling height with greater than 9 feet. You know, so that you just want to be careful about comparing this house to the other one because assessor computes square footages differently than the zoning code.
So could you surmise if the assessor assesses a lower value, where the higher value might come from? And any public records that might have that?
Yeah, I don't think we're able to determine the assessor's calculation methods.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. But obviously, we are comparing. They even have a drawing here to compare the size of the homes, and it's, neighborhood compatibility. We look at every project. Every project seems to try to expand, and we look at that. So, let's see here. For that home, the picture that you showed from Corte Allegra, and it kind of shows the home to the right of the property, and the roof line again, it shows the roof line of the adjacent house. I don't think it's actually on the same street, but it might be behind it. Was that other dwelling, was that a single story or a two-story?
So which photo are you referring to, or is it in the plan sheet?
It was a photo that you showed, it looked like from Corte Allegra, and it showed the roof lines.
Maybe we can pull it up on the PowerPoint.
It was a photo.
One of the photos.
It was after the presentation. Okay, here we go. Right there.
One of these ones?
This one, for example, was that house to the right, is that one story or two story?
I'm not entirely sure. I believe that might be 1080 Vista Grande, which is 2 levels, but I'd have to confirm that.
Okay, thank you. We had a clarification. It's 2 seconds, two stories. Okay, thank you. Any other questions for staff?
I think I know the answer to this question, but looking at the photos of the views, I see a lot of overhead power lines and poles. we are not aware of any plans from PG&E to underground them or change how they look currently.
No, at this moment, we do not.
Thank
no.
you.
Okay, thank you, Nestor. So let's move on to the applicant and owner. If the owner, Jonathan and Stephanie Wong, if they wish to make a presentation, and their architect also, welcome to the podium.
Good evening, commissioners. Sorry, I'm a little nervous. I'm Stephanie Wang. My husband Jonathan and I are the project sponsors for 45 Corte del Sol. I'm trained to be a pharmacist. A few years ago, I decided to step down from my role of pharmacy manager to focus on our young children. So currently, I'm actually a stay-at-home mom. My husband Jonathan is a periodontist, and he works at a couple offices locally. We have 3 young children, a 3-year-old daughter, a 5-year-old son, and a 7-year-old daughter. We currently live in South San Francisco, but we're very excited about this home and moving to MILLBRAE for its great schools, its very family-friendly sense of community, and its central location. Our youngest daughter is actually at a preschool in MILLBRAE currently, and our 2 older children have actually attended that same preschool as well. So for the last 5 years or so, we've really been able to experience and kind of immerse ourselves in the warm community of MILLBRAE, so we're excited about that part. We also have close friends that live within a 5-minute walk from 45 Corte del Sol. So we spent the last year and a half working really hard to carefully design a home that would be a positive contribution to the neighborhood. We wanted it to be a house that our kids can grow up in and call home for a very long time. And we really wanted the space also just to kind of fit what we have been stirring in our hearts of one day fostering, and one day maybe caring for our parents, either parents or both parents as they age. So thank you for your consideration and your time. I'm going to hand it off to our architect, Bon, now, who's going to go over the project in more details.
Thank you, Commissioner, and thank you, Chair, for having us here. My name is Bon Jung, representing Core Architecture, and we wanted to go through some of the exhibits here being shown on the screen to explain the challenges that we're dealing with. This is a very challenging project, and so just to give a quick background where the site is, we're in a cul-de-sac at a radial site, and we have constraints that are sort of forcing us into some design decisions that are sort of being influenced by the neighbors. So we did our best to try to comply with their concerns. So if you could go to the next page, please.
You could speak a little closer to the mic.
Okay,
Thank you.
so I'll do that.
Yeah.
Okay. So the second exhibit is showing what would it mean if the house were to be a single-story home. And the yellow highlight area is showing about 4,200 square feet to meet the owner's needs. And this diagram is showing an expansion bias towards the sort of the south right corner, and that would have a huge impact to 1080's only view, to the vista from their principal room. On the sort of the top right side, you can see the pink area. We've recessed that corner, and we have hedged there so that we have further separation to address 35 Corte del Sol's privacy concerns. And but if you could see that the sort of the orange highlight area, the backyard that the owner would be able to use is really denied, very much so. So if we could go to the next page. It's an alternate version of what this single-story home design might look like in plan if we were to bias it towards the northern right side, and that makes it even worse for 35's privacy concern. And it's still, we would still run into 1080's impact to their only view from their room. So if you could go to the next page, please. So this is just highlighting, hey, if we were to expand the home with single-story design, what would it mean for 1080's resident? And I think it's very clear in either of the options, their only view from their home is critically impacted. Next slide, please. So this slide is showing back in 2022, we worked with 1080's resident to set back our home further back from the backyard so that they can maintain that view that they have. Next slide, please. So this slide is showing sort of the design decisions we've made to address 35 Corte del Sol's privacy concern. On the second story, we don't have any windows facing 35's neighborhood, the 35's lot, as shown on this red line up towards the north. We also don't have any window facing 55 Corte del Sol, as shown on the red line on the south side. And the orange line is showing the extent of 6-foot fence that is is based on where the location of 35 Corte del Sol's windows are located. And the right bottom drawing is showing the recessed corner of the backyard with hedge installed so that we have that, again, separation of privacy between 35 and our project site. Next slide, please. Here we're showing the design changes we went through to address 35's privacy concerns. So on the second story, initially we had a balcony off of the master bedroom to support their the outdoor experience, but we've eliminated that to again address 35's privacy concern, and we've placed skylight to bring in natural light into the living room. But at the city's sort of recommendation, we further offset the angle of the exterior wall, as you can see on the third diagram, and that eliminated the skylight. And these are the features that the homeowners can really enjoy, but we're really respecting 35's privacy concerns, so we've gone through these design iterations to address their concern. Next page, please. This is showing, hey, what would it mean if we were to, as Nestor mentioned, underground the project so that we don't impact 20 and 30's views. And this would add about 2,200 cubic yard of site excavation and really add nearly $500,000 of project cost. And that really brings the project to become financially unfeasible. Next slide, please. So these are photos that the city already shared. These are photos from 20 Corte Alegre. And next slide, please. These are the photos from 30 Corte Alegre, where they're seeing story poles of the project impacting their views. Next slide, please. At 35's request, the project owner, they are willing to incur additional cost on their own to remove existing vegetation that's currently at city of right-of-way that's separating 35 and 45 homes. So again, we're doing everything in terms of design, but we're also incurring additional cost to work with the neighbor's request. Next slide, please. This slide is showing some of the design changes we went through in working with the city. So initially, we envisioned schematically low-sloped roof. We also envisioned stucco as an exterior wall facade. But to work with the city and to make sure the design is cohesive to the neighborhood appearance, we've changed that to sloped roof with asphalt shingles. And we've incorporated natural stone to the exterior facade on the first level. And as you can see, initially, we also had clear story windows on the second level facing 35 Corte del Sol, but again, to address their privacy, we've eliminated them. The roof pitches are at 312, so they're at the minimum pitch roof at the moment. Next slide, please. To summarize, I don't need to repeat myself, but this is a slide that sort of summarizes everything I've just talked about. And next slide, please. And so here is the project, and we really hope that this presentation showed all the effort we've gone through to work with the city and the neighbors, and we hope to hear some positive outcome from this hearing. Thank you.
Thank you, and again, welcome to MILLBRAE. For the commissioners, do you have any questions for the applicant? Nathan?
So you mentioned the 35 Corte del Sol neighbor requested the vegetation be removed. What was the reasoning for that request?
My understanding is that they wanted access to it, potentially for their gardener to trim some of the hedge on their side of the property, from my understanding. But we were just made aware of that preference from the city staff, and we wanted to try to be as accommodating as we possibly could be.
Through the chair, to just clarify that area, the 10-foot area between the two properties is city right-of-way. The previous owner, what we learned, had been maintaining that area as part of their property, but the survey shows that that area is considered city right-of-way, and we can't require a property owner to maintain it. It just so happens that the previous owner had been doing that for years.
Okay. Any other? Samuel?
May I ask if is the rendering of the landscape representative of the species that are proposed for the project? And there's an irrigation system that will be planned for this project. Is that correct?
Yes, we're trying to mix between xeriscaping and landscaping to be sure we're not, water is a difficult topic these days. So we will have irrigation for those plantations that need it, but we're trying to minimize that as much as we can.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Catherine?
On this last slide, number 14, I think it looks great. The back of the house, if you were to do it again, you're just seeing the house and you don't see anything around it. And it doesn't look as finished. I mean, I can kind of visualize it because I've looked at so many pictures, but it just doesn't look that attractive looking at it like that compared to what it really is. The front looks great.
Okay, so I have a question for you. Appreciate the compromises you made with the privacy and the windows. That's pretty big to remove windows on the north and south facing sides of the house. So that addresses some privacy issues. What about the, I guess, the view and the height concessions? Can you talk a little bit about the revisions you've made and how you've addressed some of the neighbor issues? It seems like you're familiar with some of these neighboring issues, so you tried to address those. Could you talk about the number of revisions and the length of time, how many times you revised the plans, and how long this project's been going on, and then also specifically any concessions on the height or of the building?
Please let me know if I miss any of your question, if I don't answer them. But we've been working with the city to make all these implementations since last year, December. So it's been about 11 months of working with the city. And, a number of iterations, it's hard to say. We've gone through many. Trying to decide between the design and the owner, hey, how much can we sacrifice? How can we still maintain and preserve the intent of the design and spirit of the home while trying to respect other people's concerns? So I don't have exact number of iterations, but we certainly did submit to the city, and we really did work with the city, more than handful of times. It was a lot of back and forth with the city, so really this is a challenging project from many different angles.
Yeah, I see the different revisions you have with the different roof pitches and different styles, so that's a lot of work in itself to come up with these different concepts. But just as far as the height too, was that the best plan that you came up with to compromise for the height of the building?
Yeah, again, we initially tried to achieve flat roof in the design, but I think the city recommended that we proceed with minimum pitched roof to be cohesive with the neighboring sort of appearance, and we fully respected that. And so 312 is the minimum height for pitched roof Certainly you can go lower, but, we're just being challenged. If we go lower than 312 roof pitch, then we're violating the zoning code. That's at 25 feet maximum building height at roof pitch that's lower, shallower than 312. So, we try to just do everything we can to maintain as low of a house height as possible, but complying with the zoning code requirements.
You say that low as possible, but I see the roof ceiling heights are pretty large. Can you talk about, again, the height of the building in relation to the crawl space, the first floor ceiling height, second story ceiling height? And then also, secondly, if you were to do flat roof, or apply for a variance for a flat roof and slightly reduce ceiling heights, how far could you get down? Have you thought about that?
Yeah, so most of the ceiling height throughout the home is 9-foot ceiling height. And that's something the client is, it's important to them to feel like they're in a house that feels open. And we do have some ceiling heights that are at 10 feet, and that's at the living room, kitchen, and dining, that grand room on the first floor. And again, that's really about designing something that can maximize their joy of living in that house for their long period of time.
And what's the crawl space height?
The crawl space height it's less than, the usable space will be less than 4 feet, really. There isn't much up there.
Have you talked about doing, instead of 10-foot, 9-foot ceiling heights, have like recesses in the ceiling that might contribute to the same feel as a higher ceiling, but could reduce the first floor height?
I would have to try to figure that out with the owners. Go ahead.
Yeah, we did look into lowering the top plate of the home by 2 feet, but we found that it wouldn't be a significant improvement for 20 Corte Alegre's view, and which is why we left it as proposed, which is also why the city asked us to look into undergrounding or excavating the lot further to underground the first floor of the home. And as a result, we found that it would just be financially unfeasible. And that's how we came up with the $500,000 figure from a contractor that helped install our story poles.
If you were that 2-foot reduction, is that with a pitched roof or a flat roof?
That would be with a pitched roof, lowering the top plate of the home. So from my understanding, that's beneath.
Okay, and then I noticed on the drawings, there's different elevations. I don't know if it's a mistake, but it has different starting elevations for the first floor. Some say it starts at like 1 foot above grade, and then there's different heights for the garage. So it's kind of confusing as to
Yeah, I could speak to that. So the grade that starts at level 0 is where the grade is that the house is sitting on. But, for curb details, waterproofing details, and to just, the house itself is on a 1-foot raised platform above the level 0 site grade.
So is that an existing slab? Are you planning to keep that or demolish that?
We're gonna demolish and do a new slab.
Okay, so when you demolish the slab, there's going to be regrading before the slab?
Yes.
So you will be regrading the property?
Yes.
Okay, and including the swimming pool in the back and a lot of earthwork?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Okay, thank you. We're going to move on to public comment. How many speaker slips? 7 slips. 7 slips. We have 7 people wishing to speak, and then also anybody on Zoom?
Not
Christy? Okay, so 7, 3. Yeah, we can go 20 minutes for 3 minutes each. Appreciate the applicant and the owner giving their presentation. We'll move on to the neighbors, starting with Alyssa Fortune. Okay. Okay. At 20 Corte Legre. Welcome to the podium. And then yeah, you have 3 minutes if we can do timer.
Okay. Hi, I'm Alyssa Fortune at 20 Corte Alegre. I also am a homemaker, so I put my career on hold. I have 2 young children. The main living room, so living room, kitchen, dining room, that whole is going to be, not the whole, but it was a 180-degree panoramic view. And so we'll just see house covering, what is it, the bay? Some of the, I forget what it's called, the bay. So that's one of the biggest. We'll just see house. Also, I don't know if there's windows. They would be looking in directly on our main floor. We also have a living room upstairs along with that, and it also would be not as obstructive, but so there's 2. But our main floor where we spend 90% of our time, we would just, you couldn't see the other side, the right side. It would be that house. The other thing is the devaluation of the home because of the view. So that's a huge concern. And then the main, yeah, so it'd be looking into our, whatever's on that side would be looking right into our main area of the home. I think that's all I'll say.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, next we have Brandon Lau, at 30 Corte Alegre.
That's my house. 20.
Okay. Okay, welcome, Brandon.
Hey, good evening, Commissioners. Yeah, there's been several alarming issues surrounding this project at 45 Corte del Sol that has recently come to light. You guys pointed out some good things that I wanted to bring up. So it is in violation of the MILLBRAE Ordinance LU 3.4 for the panoramic view. We have 270-degree view, but because if they're going to build this up, we're going to look at 90-degree less. But Commissioner Quigg and Commissioner Chan were correct. Those photos that were shown to you are not to scale. This is the scale. That looked like a mile away, you know, the poles. So this is exactly how it looks like. And this is from the second story too. They're not a mile away. They're very close. And it does block the runway of the airport. I actually am retired, so I sat there and watched the airplane crash from Korean Air, and Nestor didn't even know that there was an airplane crash in San Francisco airport, so brought that up to him. But yeah, and then for Commissioner Allen, you were asking about the homes. All the homes in the area right here, they're single stories. They were saying it's double stories, kind of correct. It's single story, and then they back down and build downward. So then it's multi-stories, but back and down, not upward. So as you can see, people's backyards, it's single story, and then they build a deck that goes down, and then rooms downstairs, and then it's multi-level going down backwards. So I just wanted to let you guys know, clarify on that. Yeah, so LU 3.4, blocking our panoramic view. We've had this since 1997, so it's been there for a long time. And it also destroys kind of the historic neighborhood ordinance, LU 3.1, 3.3, the aesthetics, the characters surrounding the neighborhood, one-story, mid-century, modern-style ranch homes. So not one home in that area is upward. It's always been single and then build backwards and down. And their home is quite deceptive, as Commissioner Quid pointed out, that there's no neighbors, there's no power lines. And I actually received a call from the California PUC Enforcement Bureau this morning saying that they're a little concerned about the power lines because they cannot move it. It's going to cost a lot of money, and they're going to send an investigator up to check. And then they're also going to have PG&E Enforcement Bureau come and check for wildfire problems because it's so close to the second and third high-powered lines. That's the main concern for safety because we have a lot of trees in the backyard. As you've seen from my picture, our neighbors have a lot of trees close to the power lines, so it's a danger. So besides the lack of regulatory approvals, pretty much it. PG&E and California Public Utilities Commission said nothing was submitted.
Okay, thank you, Brennan.
Okay.
Good timing. Next up, we have Nicole Lewis. If you're in the audience, 35 Corte del Sol. Welcome.
Hi, good evening. I'm Nicole Lewis, and I'm speaking on behalf of myself and my husband, Mike. He's a retired San Francisco firefighter and community college educator, and we're homeowners, been longtime residents of MILLBRAE, 47 years in this very home, integral part of this community for a long time. And this is really my response to the package that has been presented to you. Feel free to call me about any question about that. But there are some false claims I want to draw your attention to. I'm going to go quick because I have 3 minutes. First of all, the shade study. The first time we enthusiastically welcomed our new neighbors into our home, Jonathan and Stephanie came well prepared. And they showed us a convincing shade study reassuring us their proposed design would minimally impact us. They hoped to address our concerns that we would, move forward with the plan. And I just simply would like to show you what it looks like with the pole studies today at 2 o'clock from my roof line. And you can see at 12:30, 1:30, and 2:30, and that the sun is in fact behind the pole study. And so from 12:30 to 3:30 in November, it shows me that about 30% of the daylight, the warmest part of the day, the sun appears to be behind their structure. So I encourage you to look again, to maybe do a more extensive study or at least have it peer reviewed. So that's one thing. And that also, interferes with our future energy plan with Sunrun to replace our roof, install further solar. Our roof already has solar panels on it. So I would just reject this idea, the assumption that the structure will have little or no effect on our sun exposure. Okay, moving on. The second story is to our benefit. False. We all along have requested a single story. It does not encroach on our privacy more to be a single story. Again, the first time we met, they told us that, in fact, the city required them to build a 2-story, and that was coming from the city. So that, again, is false. I'm rushing here because I'm nervous and I have a time constraint. So it would not be more intrusive, and I don't understand why they claim they could not build a single-story home. Again, the first day we met, they told me that it would benefit the entire neighborhood. They could simply lower the elevation to street level and build a 4,200 square foot home that would solve the problem with 1080's view. It actually is a very small section. If you look at their visual, it's a small section.
10 seconds.
And so there's that. And then, so I also have invited a friend of mine who is a contractor, a builder.
Excuse me, we're going to have to be
to
fair
address
to
the
give other
tenable.
people a chance to speak.
Okay, the final false.
Okay, we're going, okay, thank you. Okay, we'll move on to make sure we get everyone a chance to speak. Thank you. So next up, we have Mike Glenn, 35 Corte del Sol.
Hi.
Welcome.
My name is Michael Glenn. I'm a general engineering contractor and a developer. So I don't live in MILLBRAE. I am a relative of the Lewises at 35. And so they basically asked me to take a look at the project. So I'm looking at it from the perspective as a builder and a developer. And the building itself is attractive, but these are some of the things that I noticed. present building design maximizes the height and the views above all else. If you look at the topo and you look at the elevation of the curb on the street and you look at the elevations throughout the existing property, they're literally adding a foot in to the finished floor of with the new plan, as opposed to what is existing. The ceiling heights are 10 feet, the first floor. There appears to be a 2-foot section between the first floor and the second floor. That's in the plans that I saw. So I think even if it was a 2-story, I think the building could be dropped at least 3 feet without submerging the entire building below grade. Because one, you could come in and you do your demo. I think Mr. Wong pointed that out. When you do your demo, remove the slab, remove the pool. The natural thing is to lower everything a little bit. I have a concern about the retaining wall in the back. If you look at all the steps towards number 35, it's going to be really elevated. So if I was building, I actually wouldn't even propose a project like this. I've been before different towns, and it's pretty ambitious to think that you can do this. Normally you try and lower things a little bit. And if you're going for a 2-story, you temper your ceiling heights on the first floor. And I have a bunch of elevations that I actually think the finished floor should be like 97.5 for the first floor. From a building perspective, I don't think the cost would be huge to do that. And I think your retaining walls in the back then would be less. And I would lower the first floor height, maybe a foot, maybe 6 inches. I have a question about that 2-foot section that
You have 30 seconds.
Yeah, maybe that should be about 14 inches typical. And if you want higher ceilings in the second story, I'd vault the ceilings to give the impression of a higher ceiling. That's it.
Thank you. Next up, we have speaker slip for Ray Valdez, 30 Corte del Sol. Welcome, Ray.
Hi, my name is Ray Valdez, 30 Corte del Sol. I'm not too opposed of the 2-story. I was just thinking that they should bring at least down to street level, because that house is single story, but it's elevated almost as high as the 2 stories. So if you bring the lot down to the street level, then everybody would be a lot happier, and also it would probably take care of the privacy concerns and the view concerns for everybody concerned. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Some emergency services outside. Okay, next we have Remy Sayer, 15 Corte del Sol. Did I get that right? Yes. Okay. Welcome.
Hi, so my name is Rami Skayer. I grew up at 15 Corte del Sol, which is just next to Nicole. So we're 2 houses away from 45 Corte del Sol. I don't believe this project is in keeping with the neighborhood. You don't have to be fluent in Spanish to know Corte del Sol means court of the sun. This street is known for being very sun-soaked, and this home is already the highest sitting home on the lot. Every home on that lot is street level. Any home that has a second story, as somebody else mentioned, would be going down in the back. So this is the highest sitting lot on the street. It's in the corner, and then adding a second level, it will be significantly higher than any other home on the lot. I am in real estate. I've sold in that neighborhood as well as grew up there, and I think everybody kind of knows people buy in MILLBRAE Highlands for the views and the natural light. Those are 2 things you can't change, really. They can only be negatively affected, and your property value will not go up as a neighbor if you're seeing more of somebody else's home. Aside from that, I don't know anything about this solar study. I don't know if the public had access to it. it would be interesting to see, I don't know if it's too late for that, but it'd be interesting to know who did the solar study before we take it as gospel. And other bullet points? Yeah, that's about it. I would just say, if it's affecting somebody's view, it's going to be hurting more property values than helping. And I know, everybody wants their neighbors to be able to upgrade the way that they would like. But in this case, more property values will be hurt than helped. So that's definitely worth thinking about. And also, I spoke with Nestor on the phone and expressed my opposition to this project. And I did not see, and maybe it doesn't show up as an official counted vote in opposition, but I never filled out a form expressing that, but Nestor and I did speak, and I did express opposition, so I would say that's a 4-3 if there's nobody else who's here to express that. So thank you so much for listening.
Okay, thank you. And then lastly, we have Sharon Moreno, 1071 Vista Grande. Welcome. Morena.
Everyone standing, sitting, etc. My opposition to this particular home is it's just too big. It's humongous. It doesn't go to the level of all the homes in the court. I'm at 1071, by the way. I am the person you spoke about my address earlier. And I just feel that you just cannot have a large home like that with everybody else at another level. And I really hope that you consider this seriously, because you're going to be hurting a lot of people. I look up even at their little frames that are up there. I couldn't understand what it was, but I can see now that it is going to be too big. And if you go on the other side, I'm going to be very unhappy. And I'm sure a lot of other people will. So keep it within the neighborhood. That's the most important thing. Not to have it so big that it's Godzilla's here and I'm going to crash right into the neighborhood. So consider that, please.
Okay, thank you, Sharon. That's it for the speaker slips. Do we have any others?
There are no hands.
And nobody online, right? Okay, thanks everybody for contributing, applicants, neighbors. Okay. We're going to, Catherine reminded me, we would allow the applicant and the architect to provide a rebuttal to the neighborhood statements if they wish to do so at this time.
I think one of the repeated question was the question about solar shades study. We used a computer software called Revit, and it's an industry standard software that can generate solar sort of shades throughout the year when you input the address, and the models set the houses at the elevations that are based on site information. So we believe in the solar study we have provided based on the industry standard software program. So that's all I'll have to say to that. And I think the comment about the scale of the home and single story design, I think the exhibits that we presented sort of logically sort of tell the story about the challenges that we would have to face if we were to try to do a single story home design.
Go ahead, Catherine. You have a question?
I saw it, but I can't remember what day that was in the winter solstice. Because right now we're in winter.
Yeah, so the solar study the plan sheet shows it throughout the year. And the worst case, it would be on December to January, where the sun angle is at the lowest.
The sun is low now.
Okay, anybody else? Okay, thank you. Okay, so at this point, we heard from the different parties. Everyone had a chance to speak. Did you have a motion to close public comment?
Second.
Okay, roll call vote.
Commissioner Choi?
Aye.
Commissioner Chan?
Yes.
Commissioner Davis?
Yes.
Vice Chair Quake?
Yes.
Chair Wong?
Yes.
Thank you. Public comment is now closed.
Okay, thank you, everybody. Commissioners, discussion? Okay, Catherine, if you'd like to start.
The homes on Corte,
You have to,
it's pretty closer. The homes on Corte Allegra, how far away are they? There's 2 backyards, 1 backyard.
you want this for the staff report?
That was for staff.
We'll take a look at the measurement. Just, if you have other questions, we can take a look at that and come back to that question.
Yeah, no, go ahead.
Okay.
Take your time. Somebody else can make a discussion, because I knew that.
Question for staff. I just want to confirm that there is not a historic neighborhood ordinance currently in MILLBRAE.
That's correct.
Thank you.
So just mentioning about the historic character of the neighborhood, usually there has to be a specific designation for historic landmark or designated building on a historic registry of places. So typically these homes, neighborhoods, they don't fall under this category. I think there's only 2 locations in MILLBRAE that have historic designation. One's the train station. The other one might be the museum, maybe? I'm not sure.
No, we don't have
Okay. Other discussion issues?
In terms of the distance, the question that was asked, the 20 Corte Allegra, there's basically a house distance between the project property, 45, their neighbor next door is 55, and in the rear of 55 is 20 Corte Allegra.
So it's about 50.
I'm sorry?
50?
In terms of distance, looking at it, it looks over about 120 feet.
120 feet.
From, and this is from the property line, or from the property itself at 20 to 45.
Can you just clarify what all this discussion is about the wires? Electrical wires? I mean, they've always been there, so I don't.
Yeah, I think the point about it is that there's currently in that direction of the new home, there's a PG&E pole and wires that are kind of in that the sight line. So there's already some obstruction there.
So the new house is going to have underground though, right?
The
Underground connections.
I believe so.
And if we are just looking at design elements, right? That's what we do.
Right, yeah, the design review permit
Right,
standards
and
are.
then all of these papers, all of these plans are going to go to plan review, right?
That's correct.
Okay. So after, even if we approve this now, there's a lot more detail. And if they find something's wrong, they would fix it, okay? So this is just the first step. Yeah, it is.
So would like to hear more comments. I'll just start off. Very creative addition or renovation. Really nice materials. A little bit slightly different than the typical Spanish mission or colonial and ranch neighborhood. It is much harder stone on the bottom. It's more like, I would say, castle style. The wood on the second story, and as I mentioned with the previous house, there's a lot of upkeep, painting, staining, washing. Over time, wood turns black, just like fences if you don't stain them. So there's maintenance issues. Maybe hardy backer would be even better. But overall, it's really well thought out layout. Really nice design overall, but it is a little bit bulky and massive because it's kind of like a cake layer style. Not much, I think, that, well, maybe there's more that can be done, but it is the one thing that stands out. It is big too, and we're going up maximum heights and 10-foot ceilings on the bottom, 9-foot on the second floor. I did look at the different square footages of other neighboring properties. This looks like it is almost 1,000 square feet larger than almost any other house in the neighborhood. With that, there's things that I think that could be done, like I think everyone's and the neighbors are mentioning grading if the applicant's willing to look at regrading. This is very different, the topography. The whole MILLBRAE slopes down from like a hillcrest, and this street, it kind of slopes down toward Vista Grande. So the other houses across the street, they could have the second 2 stories with the second story on the bottom because it's sloping down, but this one's kind of sitting way up there. And so these heights and the ceiling heights and the size of the building, it exaggerates that. And then, like I mentioned with the other house, we do have these, projects in the codes, like 30-foot ceiling, 30-foot heights for the homes. But there's always situations that are kind of different or unique like this, where if it's sitting higher than everybody else, and then you're going up to the max, then that just exaggerates the differences and makes it look out of place, which I think it looks a little bit out of place. So, this is just the process. You guys are going to be neighbors for a long time, and that, everyone's going to find a solution, hopefully that everyone agrees and gets along, and then that's just the way we have that, because if we just designed according to code and everything meets code, we wouldn't need to be here. So we do have this venue for getting community feedback and trying to listen to neighboring concerns and try to help make some type of compromise. So I hope that some compromise can be found for this. Other commissioners?
This is a very difficult topography, so I want to commend the architect and city staff. Even before seeing your presentation and just reading the material beforehand, it's very apparent there was a lot of work among both of you on refining the project and getting it to where it is. So I like the material board. I think the material, while it's not in keeping or while it's different than what you find in the neighborhood, I think it's very appropriate. I do think that because you're demolishing what's there and rebuilding, that there is a chance to regrade and build. I think to accommodate the square footage needed, the 2-story is the appropriate construction. But I think a little bit of regrading would go a long way to address many of the neighbors' concerns, as well as building a more appropriate a project that's more appropriate to this site.
David?
Yeah, definitely. I concur with the other commissioners that this has been an interesting meeting and a challenging site to work with. I think MILLBRAE needs to welcome young families such as yours, and it's great that you're already introducing your children to the community and are excited to move here. I keep coming back to the question that I asked Nestor about if they were to abandon a two-story building, wouldn't that run up against the lot coverage requirement? So then the applicants run into a hard requirement that we have to grant an exception or variant exception for, versus everything that they've done to date seems to meet exactly what the code requires. And I guess, Commissioner Wong, you and I might differ slightly on this. I think we want to make sure we set applicants up for success when they come before the commission. And if they meet the requirements, but then we turn around, through the process of this design review, ask them to cut an entire story out or, undertake very expensive excavation, I'm not sure that encourages these kinds of redesigns to take place. In terms of it feels to me like, based on how much the project has changed, the applicant has made a good faith effort to reach out to neighbors and address their concerns. It seems, it's unfortunate that there are still some concerns, but I'm not sure how much of the project would have to be sacrificed in order to address all of them. So it feels to me like they've tried and made a good faith effort. And then finally, in terms of the view, I mean, you do have a very enviable view. It just feels to me like, in order to maintain that view, we would have to deny any second-story addition that you would see out your window. And if our code says you can add a second story up to 30 feet, short of saying, well, for this specific section of the city, you can't build up that high, I don't think it's fair for any of the people who buy property in that area. Sorry, let me rephrase that. So if there were an overlay that said, well, in this area, we want to protect the view shed, and so therefore you can't build high, that's fair. But if the code says you can build that high, and then anytime someone comes in front of Planning Commission, we say, well, we want to protect the entire view for everyone uphill of them, then I don't think that's fair.
Maureen?
I can follow that. The really important point that Nathan was making there is that our property owners have to be able to trust our development standards. Whether they're new or old owners, it doesn't matter. You could look at the rules and you say, what can I do? Per your private property rights, you should be able to do what you need to do. Most of our homes in MILLBRAE were built in the 40s, 50s, sliding into the 60s. A lot of them are ranch-style homes. But household needs have evolved I'm not going to do the math, a lot of decades since. And our household needs now are for larger homes, more bedrooms, more bathrooms. And that's just the way we're evolving. And this home I think it's a beautiful design. And when they've met all of the requirements and have done several iterations to do their absolute best to respond to as many neighbors as possible, and I can't deny any of the findings we need to make, I'd say that this project has gone about as far as it can, unless you can dig down a little deeper, but I don't know about that. I think if you could have, you probably would have already tried to do that as part of your design. But I think it's a very nice design. And I want our residents and property owners to be able to trust in our standards. Not that we're just going to willy-nilly say no to a project. We can't do that. We have to be trusted. So, thank you.
I think it was very well said. It's always difficult when there's change and you don't know what the change is going to be. For Corte Alegre, it's pretty far down, 220 feet. Yeah, it might take a little bit of view away, but you're still going to have a lot of view there. The house is large. Yeah, it's large. It still fits into all the numbers. It's large. It's larger than what we were used to in the past, but like Maureen said, that's where we're going to now. I think it's going to be tucked away okay once it's built. I've been doing this a long time, and change and views are just extremely difficult for both people. So if there was a way that when they take it out, they could go down a little bit, that would be fine. But I wouldn't expect them to spend $500,000 to regrade, to bring it down, because it is, I agree, it is up on a hill already. It is a tough decision, it's a tough lot, and I think the house looks great. With that being said, any other comments?
I would just suggest that, if there are this many concerns, look at compromise. You may get it approved, but really think about what more you might do to make some compromises. One of the keys of neighborhood design or house design, as we talked about, is compatibility. So again, like we mentioned with the other project, if you see a slope and then there's homes tapered off, that we wouldn't want a home sticking up above the other ones as it's going down. And so the same thing with this project here. I see it's not really tapering down, but sticking up. And there is, pretty, going up to the max height limits, 10 feet. That's pretty luxurious to have 10-foot, 9-foot high ceilings. So, and then if you are regrading and having to fill in the swimming pool, and you're going to need a lot of dirt, there might be opportunities to push and regrade some of that dirt to make the compromises. So that I would just throw that out there. But Catherine, what are you going to suggest?
Through the chair, I just wanted to clarify a previous comment I made. Just looking at the site again about the overhead wires, the existing house connects to the overhead wires, and so presumably the proposed home would do the same. So it would not be undergrounded.
It's not underground? To theirs? Okay.
Okay, any other comments, discussion?
I'm prepared to make a motion to approve the project design review permit application to allow the demolition of an existing single-story residence and the construction of a new two-story residence in the single-family residential R1 zoning, subject to all of the findings and the conditions of approval as stated in the resolution.
I'll second.
And can we have a roll call vote?
Am I on? Commissioner Choi?
No.
Commissioner Chan?
Yes.
Commissioner Davis?
Yes.
Vice Chair Quigg?
Yes.
Chair Wong?
No.
Motion is approved 3-2 with Commissioner Choi and Chair Wong voting against.
Okay, thank you, everybody. If you wish to leave or stay through the rest of the agenda. Oh, yes, good point. There is a 10-day right of appeal. Roscoe, if you could mention that. Roscoe, if you could mention that procedure, the appeal procedure.
Yeah, it's in the chair notes for him to mention if there's an appeal.
Yeah, so the action of the Planning Commission is subject to 10-day rights of appeal. provided that the appeal fee be paid to the city clerk prior to the 10 calendar days.
You go with them. Check with staff.
Sure.
Okay, so for that, you'd have
They
to make
did
that
it all.
request for the clerk. Okay, so further discussion, you can put in that request for appeal. I think at that point, it may go over to the city council.
Yeah,
for review.
appeals to the city council.
Chair,
Right, we already carried the motion, so if you want to appeal the decision or have more done, you would present that to the city clerk in writing. Thank you. Okay, so we're coming to the end of our agenda for item number 5. It's new business. City staff, Roscoe, Cynthia.
Where's my agenda?
no new business, Chair.
Okay, no new business. And then for item number 6, staff updates.
Just a couple updates this evening. Just wanted to bring the Planning Commission's attention that the City Council last week at the City Council meeting approved a contract for Lisa Wise Consulting to prepare the city's design review standards. The next step is that the city will prepare a contract to be executed with the consultants, and then it's looking like after the new year, then work can begin on that effort. It'll be about a 2-year effort, several neighborhood workshops, Planning Commission study sessions, City Council study sessions, and subsequent Planning Commission hearings and adoption hearings. So we're really excited about that to get started on that. So more to come on that. Additionally, one of the council priorities that the council set at their goal setting was the preparation of an East Side specific plan. There is a subcommittee comprised of 2 council members, and we'll be working with staff on that effort. Over the next few months, we'll be preparing an RFP for that preparation of that plan, which will first include a visioning process to gather input from the community on what they would like to see in that area. Additionally, VMT, vehicle miles traveled, is a new it's a new way of measuring transportation impacts that the state SB 743 requires. Before it was LOS, in other words, how long you have to wait at a stoplight to get through. It's graded from A to F, A being little to no wait, F being a really, really long wait. So that metric of measuring transportation impacts is changed to VMT, essentially how far you have to go for amenities. So if you're really far out in rural areas, it's going to have a greater VMT impact because you have to drive further to go to groceries and things like that. If you're in an urban area where you have a lot of amenities, you would have less of a transportation impact because you don't have to go as far. So that's just a simplistic way of explaining what it is. Staff has been working with the consultant on preparation of the city's VMT policy, and we'll be bringing that forth to the Planning Commission as early as the next meeting. So that being said, we will have the next Planning Commission meeting, which is originally scheduled for December 4th. And we have a few items that probably include that as well. So that's all the updates I have this evening. Nathan, yes.
Yeah, with respect to the VMT policy, is the first public appearance of the drafts going to be when the Planning Commission agenda is released or might it be released earlier?
It would be, that would be the first public release of the policy. And it's a recommendation to the city council because the city council will set the policy. So the planning commission will make a recommendation. And we'll have a consultant to answer questions. It's a highly technical document, but I think it's complicated for the, for the layperson to understand, but I think that there are certain OPR recommendations that they have made and that cities can adopt or veer away from, and so we'll take you through that process. But staff will be adopting close to recommendations from OPR. But we'll get into the details next meeting or when that comes to the commission.
So is that going to be on the next agenda on the 4th?
Yeah, correct.
But there's other projects also?
There are others, yes.
Okay.
Okay, item number 7, planning commissioner announcements. Any announcements?
I'll boast about a couple of community events. Saturday, December 2nd is the annual holiday tree lighting event here at City Hall. Come on down and have some fun with that. And MILLBRAE Goes to the Movies is Friday the 8th. I don't know what the movie is. I probably should. Grinch! Wasn't there a vote for that? Probably they usually vote, but the Grinch won on that one, so.
And the MILLBRAE Community Foundation is producing or painting stars to hang on the holiday tree out in front for a donation for the MILLBRAE Community Foundation. And there was something else, and I guess there's Santa too. Santa, Mr. and Mrs. Santa taking pictures with the kids on Saturday afternoon.
Before the tree lighting?
Before
At the gazebo, perhaps?
And the museum,
Oh,
you
yeah.
know, the Historical Society, they're having a children's party at the train museum the same day.
You're
So
right.
you can go bring your kids from the train museum to seeing Mr. and Mrs. Santa. Well, there's just a few of us here. Mr. and Mrs. Santa, and then I forget. Oh, okay. So they can start out in the morning at 10 o'clock, then they can ride the fire engine down at the train museum, and then they can go visit Mr. and Mrs. Santa, and then they can go to the tree lighting, and they can have hot cocoa. So
And then everybody go out to dinner in MILLBRAE.
Actually, after that, then they can go to the
Not the
St. Dunstan fundraiser, spaghetti feed.
Yet another one.
On that
Okay.
same night.
Well, there's dinner.
So that will
All
top
right.
it off.
Okay.
Oh, you're right.
You're covered.
It is, you're right.
Okay, and then
Busy day.
prior to that, I hope everyone has a happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Fortunately, they delayed crab season again.
Mm.
Crabs aren't thriving,
So
so.
St. Dunstan's did the right thing.
They should just change the season.
I have to move it, shift it. More to be thankful for then. Okay, thank you, everybody. Meeting
Thank you.
adjourned.
Okay, thank you. Did you vote no on both projects?